Hey, welcome to Mac's Garage. I'm obviously not Mac. Want to do things a little bit differently today. So my name's Jody. I'm the lovely husband of Mac. And wanted to kind of go over the event that I just did with you guys. I figured it'd be easier for me to just talk and be on camera instead of trying to tell her everything to turn around and tell you guys everything. I figured I'd just tell you myself. So the event I did was Sick Smokies. So if you're not familiar with Sick the Mag, check them out. They're big on drag and drive stuff. If you don't know what a drag and drive is, this particular event was an 8th mile drag race where you do 5 tracks in 7 days, 6 days. And the goal of the event is to have the best average ET over all the racetracks in your class. So obviously took the Corvette. I think what the class that I was in was either quickest Chevrolet or quickest small block. I knew I was not going to be competitive, but that's okay. It was for the adventure, so that's a big thing for Sick the Mag, is for the adventure. So it was a super awesome experience. And if you're not familiar with the rules, between each track after day one, this day one was at Rocket City Dragway in Huntsville, Alabama. You have to drive your car under its own power between each track. There's checkpoints between each track, and you have to hit those checkpoints, take a picture of your car in front of those checkpoints, post them on social media, and then show those pictures and turn in your time slip at the following racetrack in order to stay eligible to stay in the race. This was my first drag and drive, as well as my first time ever being on a drag strip, so it was a learning experience for me. I really wish Matt could have gone with me, but unfortunately she couldn't go this time around. We're already planning for the next one. That'll be next year sometime. So I just wanted to go through, show you guys some clips of racing. I took the GoPro with me, had it mounted up on the window. So day 0, I believe I got in last Saturday, into the hotel later that night. Sunday morning was day 0. So I was wake up, get to the track, met up with some friends of mine who convinced me to go. Friend Billy's got a red IROC Z with a built motor in it that's going to be twin turbo here soon. So he was excited to get his car out there and get it dialed in before we get the turbos on it. Had a friend with a orange C5 Corvette. Unfortunately, he broke on day 0. He ended up taking his truck that he towed his car up to Huntsville with, which was pretty awesome. It's I believe 98 GMC dually. And then met up with some other guys that they had met at previous events. So it was a good time. Definitely recommend it. They do stream, I believe, Sick Summer and Sick Week. If you've not heard of those, check them out. But it's overall super awesome event. Everybody's got to run their windshield banner, so I got the Sick Smokies windshield banner. I ran in D class, which is the slowest of the drag radio class. Obviously the Mickey Thompson Street ETSSs that I'm running on the back qualify to be in a soft tire class. So you had this particular event was gassers, so there's lots of gassers there. They had their own class to run, so all the gassers ran together, which is pretty awesome. I believe they had 75 planned for the event, and I believe 50 or 55 actually showed up. So it was awesome seeing that many gassers together. Old school drag cars, front ends lifted up in the air, have to be period correct. I believe they had 3 different classes inside of gassers, or 4. They had A gas, B gas, C gas, and outlaws. So that was pretty cool to see. Then you had your regular AB group. They ran together. That was the fastest out there. C group was a little bit slower. They were limited to, I believe, 640s in the 8th mile. And then you had D group, which the fastest you can go in D group in the 8th mile is 736. So, buddy with the IROC, he broke out the first day, and then one of the gassers that we were with, he also broke out a couple of times. So it's pretty cool to see them push the limits of their cars. So, started in Rocket City Dragway on day 1. So I'll insert those clips of racing there, so you guys can check that out. All right, and then from Rocket City Dragway, we had a 161-mile drive to get to Music City Raceway in Nashville. 3 stops that day. Had to stop at the Parthenon in Nashville, and we had to stop at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. That was also on the other side of Nashville, I believe. And then we also stopped at the Gordon House, which was our checkpoint 1. All went well. Didn't have any issues other than when I left the track on day 1 at Rocket City, got about 15 miles down the road, and the power wire that we installed at the battery for the Holly Sniper worked its way out of the terminal, and it shut the car off twice before I realized what was happening. Pretty easy fix. Pushed the terminal back on there, and then when we got to the hotel later that night in Nashville, luckily I brought some ring terminals with me and re-terminated the wire to get it more secure on the battery. Didn't have that problem after that. So another part of the rules that I didn't mention is you have to have all the tools required to fix your car if it breaks in your car, or you can tow a single axle trailer. I didn't have time to get a trailer together, being my first event, so I had to Tetris the tools that I did take, and I'll turn the camera and show you guys. So as you can see, everything that's on the ground right here is what I took with me. Bunch of hand tools, bunch of impacts. I had a little kit that had some jumper cables and stuff in it. Lots of wiring stuff, just because I knew previously working on this car, it was going to require some power issues, some electric issues, which turned out to be the only 2 problems that I had, so that was good. Took some extra oil, transmission fluid. Got my Blue Point kit that's got sockets and wrenches and all that stuff in it. And then one thing I did not realize, being new to this, is that you're required to have a helmet. So that was something stupid that I overlooked. Ended up driving on day 0 before the event started over to a local motorcycle shop and picking up the correct rated helmet for the event. So luckily that was pretty easy. If not, I could have borrowed somebody else's and got by, but this is not going to be my last one. So went ahead and knocked that out. So day 1 had a few issues. Kind of figuring out the car, wasn't super confident just because I'd never done anything like this. But overall went really well. I believe I was running in the 850s. And I'll do my best. I believe I took a picture of all the time slips, so hopefully you'll see those pop up on the screen. So day 2, woke up and raced in Music City Raceway. Facility was a little bit older, overall pretty nice. Everybody there was nice. The Sick staff, super nice, super helpful. You know, I told them that it was my first event. They walk you through the whole process. So it was good. Getting through tech was easy and all that stuff on day 0. So day 2, Music City Raceway. Unfortunately, one of the gassers, if you've never heard of a dry hop, it's when just after the burnout, they back up before the water box and they smack the throttle and see if they need to do another burnout, make sure they got the right traction. Well, one of the gassers, just out of nostalgia for the gassers, did a dry hop, got the wheels way up in the air. When he came down, he bounced into the light tree stand. Not knowing what happened, I mean, obviously he knew he hit the stand. He put it in reverse and actually ripped the wires for the tree out of the box. Shorted everything out. They spent probably 2 hours trying to fix it. They could not fix it. So one of the racer's wives got up on the track and did an old school arm drop. I'm sure you've seen lots of videos of people doing that. It was really cool to see. And they offered for anybody that was still in line, if they wanted to do an arm drop, just to say they went down the track, they were allowed to. So I'll put a clip in here. I did do the arm drop. It was pretty cool. And because of the tree not working, you didn't have any time, so nobody was going to stand there with the timer. So that day, as far as the competition went, did not count against anybody. They did not add that into your averages. So it was a long day for it not to count, but that's what happens because that's race cars for you. So after the Music City Raceway, we did a 137-mile drive. Had a couple of checkpoints here. We went to Keller's Bar and Grill, which we stopped and ate because it was a pretty long drive between the racetrack and the first checkpoint. We were all starving, so we stopped there and got some food. And then the other checkpoint we had was a Long Road Cafe. So both stops were food that day. We stopped and ate at the first place and then got on our way. Unfortunately, because of my buddy running in the E-Class with his dually, we did wait for him to finish, which E-Class was always the last to run. Hard tires tend to tear up the racetrack just because of the compound. They're not super soft, so they ran those last every day. So the last couple hours of our drive most days were at night, which was still nice. I mean, it was nice and cool outside up in the mountains this time of year. Windows down in the Corvette. Another problem that I had was I could only get the AC compressor to kick on day one. After that, it did not kick on, so that's another thing we have to get into. But like I said, weather was great, windows down, it was awesome. So I'll put some clips in here of the drive that day. All right, day three, we got into, I believe we were in Crossville, Tennessee, racing at Fitzgerald Motorsports Park. That was a good day. I believe my second fastest run was either at Fitzgerald, I can't remember if it was at Fitzgerald, or the next day at Knoxville Dragway. It might have been at Knoxville. Nice track. Like I said, everybody's still super nice. The Sick staff, we had the announcer Derek, he announced at all the tracks. Had the merch stands. Another cool thing that we had, and I'll put a picture of it here, was they had a lowered old milk van truck that was on airbags with a train horn that would ride around and give out hot dogs and ice cream sandwiches for free to all the racers. It had some water bottles and coolers in the trunk. They call it the Wieners and Creamers van. It was super awesome to see something like that. They followed us to all the tracks. They drove the whole route. It was really cool to see stuff like that. So I will insert some videos of racing right now. and we left Fitzgerald Motorsports Park and we drove to Knoxville Dragway. It was a 118-mile drive that day. Had a couple of stops. One of my favorite stops on this trip was the Bushy Mountain State Penitentiary. Was an old prison up in the mountains, has a pretty cool backstory. And just so you guys know what I'm referencing is this little handout that they gave all the racers on day one that goes through, and if you did not want to use, they had a Ride GPS app that took you through the route. This book tells you what the route is, where you're going, and the directions to get there, and also has the pictures of the checkpoints in it. So that's what I'm referencing. Bushy Mountain State Penitentiary is pretty awesome. I think the best part was there was a young kid, probably 8, 9, 10 years old, with a cardboard sign at the entrance of the state penitentiary saying, "Do a burnout." So lots of people were ripping burnouts, some massive burnouts there. My buddy Billy in the red IROC, not coming in, but leaving, probably did at least a 300-foot long burnout out the gate. And we're still waiting to find the video, but after we left the state penitentiary, we went to Low Car, which makes some old classic car parts. Mike, one of the guys that was running the gassers with us, runs a Low Car shifter and his gasser. So it was pretty cool to go see their facility. We didn't stay long. Like I said, we were getting late starts on the drives. So we didn't stay very long, hung out. And I believe day 3 was the day that the car started overheating. Noticed the temps went up to would get up to 190s, maybe touch 200 on some of the long uphills. So I had some suspicion on something was going on the car was not happy with. And I'll get into that further as we go. So day 4, we were at Knoxville Dragway. It was a good time, good facility. Like I said, everybody was super nice at all these facilities. And I'll put some racing clips on the screen for you guys now. All right, and then the drive for day 4 was 147 miles, getting up into the Smoky Mountains. Friday was an all-day drive day, so we weren't actually driving to the track at that point. I don't remember what city we stayed in, but it was a 147-mile stretch that day. With a couple of stops. I believe we had 5 stops this day. So first we stopped at Frosty Freeze Drive-In, ice cream spot, and it was delicious. We went in there, got some food, got some ice cream, got a milkshake, got back on the road, went to the Veterans Overlook, which was pretty cool. This is when I really noticed the car starting to get hot. The long uphill road, and the guys that I were following were doing 90 miles an hour. I was trying to keep up and ended up having to back out. The car was getting too hot. Also noticed the car started to smoke a little bit going up the hill. I believe that's a rear main seal. Just being on the gas for that long, under that much load, going uphill like that, the car wasn't super happy with it. So that's something we got to look at soon. Checkpoint 3 was English Mountain Dragway. So this was a fun one. It was an old 8th mile drag strip. It's still active. I believe actually Street Outlaws is coming this month sometime to do some filming out there. So really cool, old, nostalgic racetrack. They were letting everybody do burnouts. There was actually a couple of cars that did some burnouts and actually did a mock drag pass with their trailers still attached. I believe that was a girl named Holly and another woman, I don't know her name. Holly was pulling a pop-up camper behind her car. She has a G8, built G8, but it was pretty cool to see. My friend Jason and his dually ripped a massive burnout, and later that night we found out that was a problem because in the Advanced Auto Parts parking lot, we tore the whole rear end apart, and I'll insert a picture, completely exploded the rear end. We ended up hanging out for a couple of hours, called a mobile welder to come weld in a spider gear on the inside of the differential to get us back to the hotel that night. So it was an interesting experience. Ordered some pizza, hung out, it's for the adventure, so it was pretty good. Checkpoint 4 was Adventure Distilling, nice little spot up in the mountains, little distilling company, didn't hang out long, like I said, late starts. And then the last checkpoint for that day was Foothills Parkway Overlook. Because of being so late, because of the rear end, we ended up hitting that checkpoint the next day, the next morning. Like I said, you can come off the route that they set for you as long as you get back on at the same spot. And where our hotel was, we were gonna start there anyway, so we decided to hit that the next morning. You just have to hit all the checkpoints before you get to the racetrack. So ended up hitting that one the next day. The car was still smoking, getting up into the mountains. But that's as to be expected. If I would have realized that the rear main seal was leaking as bad as it was before the trip, we obviously already had the transmission out. We should have done it then. Hindsight's 2020. Transmission's gonna have to come back out at some point. So it was a good trip. Interesting experience pulling the rear end out of a dually. Luckily we had all the tools with us that we needed. So I'll put some clips up on the screen. Let you guys check it out. I did not run any kind of audio, anything to help the audio, so most of them I'm just gonna put music over, or just me talking over. But day 5 was pretty awesome. Hitting the Dragon's Tail early in the morning on a Friday was pretty busy, but not as bad as it would have been if we would have waited until Saturday. So Sick planned that pretty good with being up there on a Friday. Car was still not super happy with going up the mountains because we had gassers in our group. Gassers are meant to go fast in a straight line. They're not meant to go around, curvy roads, especially towing trailers. So they were a little slow. You'll see in the clip that we just had a pile up of cars because we had a gasser in front of us, and you don't want to push on those kind of mountain roads. But it was still an awesome experience. Stopped at the Deals Gap Motorcycle Resort, which is, if you guys have never seen it, pretty famous little area. Got a couple little cafes, got some motorcycle camping, and it was pretty cool. They've got a big tree there that people that have wrecked over the years, they call it the Tree of Shame. You hang a broken car part off of your car, motorcycle, whatever, and you hang it on this tree. It's a Tree of Shame. Pretty cool. Checkpoint 2 here was the Middle Ocoee Put-In, which was just like an old boat ramp. So it was pretty easy to get to. At this point is when the dually decided that they were going to drive home, and they actually got a junkyard rear end and swapped all the guts out of it, put it back in, and drove back that night. It was only about a 2.5 hour drive for them, but it worked out. So they got on the road. They hit these checkpoints pretty quick. We were, kind of reminded me of, Fast and Furious with the parts truck. We were kind of all chasing the dually throughout the whole trip. He was our lead. We were following him, which wasn't the best thing in the world, but I will tell you that dually can carve some mountain roads. So it was pretty awesome to see. And then checkpoint 3 here was at Twin Peaks, which was just outside of Brandon Motorsports Park, which was our next stop. So we stopped, hung out. Twin Peaks was only a mile or so from the hotel, had a couple of beers, went back to the hotel. Big thing with this event, one of the best parts of the event is at the hotels. They give you a list of hotels. They run security at the hotels, especially for all the guys that have super nice race cars. Some of these cars have hundreds of thousands of dollars into them. But everybody sits in the parking lot. They bring their camping chairs. They get their coolers full of beer. Everybody hangs out in the parking lot, shoots shit with everybody else. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to hang out. So we hung out at Twin Peaks for a little while, went back to the hotel, got our camping chairs out, met some cool people, hung out for a couple hours, talked about race car stuff or whatever. And actually, this hotel, Mac actually came up to watch me race. So her and the kids stayed with me in the hotel that night, woke up the next day and went to Brandon Motorsports Park. Brainerd was probably one of the better facilities of the trip. It's a very popular spot, lots of cool stuff going on there. And so yeah, Brandon Motorsports Park, and I'll insert some clips of me racing. So after Brandon Motorsports Park, we had a 148-mile drive back to Huntsville. So this is one big loop. I believe it was 890 something miles round trip. So we headed, Brainerd was our last stop before we went back to Huntsville. Had a couple of checkpoints. We went to Ace's EFI, which is comparable to Holley as far as what they design and what they make. It seemed to be a more affordable option just based on a couple of things that I saw. So our first checkpoint was at their facility, and was pretty cool. It was just outside of Chattanooga. Didn't stay for long. They were letting everybody do burnouts out in the street. They were giving away, I believe I got some windshield banners and some stickers, and they were giving away free food to all the racers that came through there, so it was pretty cool. Checkpoint 2, Lookout Mountain Pizza. So between Aces and Lookout Mountain, you have to climb Lookout Mountain, which if you guys never been there in Chattanooga, it's a pretty steep mountain. Super cool to go with the family, by the way. Got some attractions to do up there. But going up Lookout Mountain, car started screaming hot. Got up to like 230, 240 degrees, which for this car that stays at 180, it was hot. Was not happy. Got to the top of the mountain. Luckily, right as you get over top of the mountain, it starts dropping off pretty quick. So ended up having to pass a car to get the car to go into overdrive. That way it could coast down some of these mountains and get it to cool off. So stopped at Lookout Mountain Pizza. Couldn't figure out what was going on. Let it cool off. Caught up with my friends and continued on. So once we left Lookout Mountain Pizza, came off the mountain, off the backside of Lookout Mountain. And once we started getting into downtown, some downtown areas back over towards Huntsville, the car just started screaming hot. As soon as we stopped cruising and we started getting into the city red lights, the car just would not cool off. Pulled over, then realized that the relays that are mounted on the radiator shroud, which is not where you need to put them, were getting too hot when the car was getting hot, and the relays would click, but they were still not making electrical contact, which means I had no fans. I had no radiator fans. And like I said earlier, I think that started, I lost a fan a couple days prior, and that's why it was running a little bit hot, and just didn't realize that both my fans weren't running. Luckily, I brought some spare relays with me, swapped the relays out, zip tied them away from the fan shroud, and didn't have any problems after that. Car cooled right off. Transmission got a little warm, but I was not at all putting any kind of load on it. It just got a little bit harder than I wanted to, but you know, made sense after I realized that the fan relays were shot. So, and then we hit checkpoint 3 after that at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. Pretty cool spot. Like I said, we got there pretty late that night, especially with me having to stop. And you know, when one person stops, we all stop until we figure out the problem, and then we all move on. So, overall, super cool experience. So those were our 3 stops for there, and then day 7 we spent back at Huntsville. Woke up in the morning, it was raining outside. Car is not very waterproof, so had some water on the floorboards. Overall, not too bad though. Wasn't concerned about it really. Got a little bit of rain, got to the track, they were drying the track out. Big thing is not getting water on the track, so they ask you to dry your entire car off, door jams, engine bay, anything, anywhere water might be trapped, just so you don't get it on the track. So about everybody got their cars wiped down, and then we got another cell of storms. It was pretty quick, it only lasted about 20 minutes, but they had to start the whole process over. So we got a super late start to racing that day. D group was first that day, but I don't think we got on the track until 11:30 or so. Made 2 passes. First pass, I believe, was 8:41 or something along those lines. And then I'll insert the clip here of the second pass. So this pass right here was the best pass of the week. I believe it was 834 at 83 miles an hour, 84 miles an hour. Definitely built my confidence as the week went on. Staging the car, it's new to me. I grew up watching drag racing, so I knew, you know, from the outside looking in, I knew I knew what I needed to do. I knew to get up on the lights and things like that, but actually doing it's a little bit different. So as the week went on, saw a big increase in my reaction times, just getting more confident with the car. Reaction times obviously don't matter. If you had an over 1 second reaction time, anything after 1 second added to your ET, didn't have that problem. I did have an over 1 second reaction time, I believe, on day 2. Must have been sleeping up there, not sure. Just made another pass, got a better reaction time, turned that time slip in. So you only got to turn 1 slip in. It's not all your passes, it's just your best pass of the day. And obviously you can't turn in a pass if you break out of your time. So overall pretty good. It was a super, super awesome time. Definitely gonna be doing another one. We're looking at doing Michigan Miles, which is another one of their 8th mile one-off events that takes place up in Michigan. That's gonna be in August of next year. So got some upgrades we want to do to the car, some things we got to fix. Potentially going to do 100, 150 shot of nitrous, which I think the car will love. I'm hoping that'll get me to the top of the class at the 736 mark. I don't know if it'll get me that far, but got some things we got to fix. So yeah, I don't think I missed anything else. As you can see behind me, the shop is still a disaster. We're going to work on getting that cleaned up today, and also I'm gonna get the car up on the lift. I had some minor problems. Like I said, the rear main seal, I'm pretty sure the transmission pan is completely covered in oil from it pushing the oil out. As well as when I got hard on the brakes, the car would pull pretty hard to the right, and I believe something is binding over here on the passenger side of the car, because you could hear it popping every now and then. So I'm gonna get the car up on the lift, and I will be right back. All right, got the car up on the lift. Like I said, you can probably tell the bottom of this car is absolutely covered in oil. I mean, I've even got oil leaking off the exhaust. Like I said, I believe it is the rear main seal under my cover right here. So unfortunately, to change that, the transmission is gonna have to come back out. Where I was seeing the smoke is right here at the pan, which now that I'm looking at it, looks like I'm missing a bolt up there, so it may have backed out. On the flex plate cover, it was slinging oil out, hitting this exhaust flange right here, and smoking. So that's probably the culprit of my smoke that I saw for a couple of days. It really only did it going up the mountains. But I think it was just too much load on the engine. As far as the front suspension goes, I don't see any smoking guns just looking at it. It kind of felt like the sway bar. I got a little bit of looseness right here. I don't know if that's the cause of it, but we'll work on getting that diagnosed. Obviously you can see that my white letters are blue right now, but they're on the inside of the tire. That's just to keep it from matching the slicks that are on the car, or the drag radials rather. Other than that, car looks pretty good on the underside. Got fairly even wear on the tires. A little bit more on one side versus the other, but not too bad. But yeah, overall, car did really well. Excited to get it back out, potentially even build one for Mac. So we will see how that goes. So gonna work on getting this mess of a shop cleaned up. And yeah, if you guys got any questions about how the event went, check out Sick the Mag for any upcoming events if it's something that you're interested in, or even coming to spectate. They allow spectators on all the tracks. You can walk through the pits, talk to all the racers. Like I said, Matt came up and watched me race with the kids, so that was a pretty cool experience. So yeah, overall, car did really well. Super happy with it. Holly Sniper kind of dialed itself in. I've got a friend with the iRock. He's pretty smart when it comes to the tuning stuff, so he got me dialed in on, car wanted a little bit more gas when it was hot starting. Get my fuel tables dialed in for me so the Sniper's not having to learn so much. Another thing that's gonna have to get fixed is the exhaust. Those mufflers, I'm gonna cut those off as soon as possible. The drone, while driving 45 to 55 miles per hour, is pretty bad. So that's gonna get changed. Some other things that I'm looking at is obviously spraying nitrous, but gotta get some other stuff dialed in first. Want to swap the car over to coilovers. The rear end suspension is basically stock. We've got to get some advice from a frame shop about repairing the trailing arms. I'm getting ready to take some pictures and send some pictures off to get the trailing arm pockets fixed. I'll show you guys that. So as you can see where the trailing arms go up in to the frame, some pretty bad rust up in there. Trailing arms themselves I'm gonna replace, or Mac's gonna replace, and do some with a coilover conversion. This side's pretty bad too, so something else to look at, but we wanna see what that's gonna look like. To do a coilover change, spray some nitrous, get this rear end rebuilt. Get the rear end, we're actually gonna pull the rear end out of the car at some point and service it. Because it's probably never been done or it's been a long time. I see some RTV on the seal, so somebody's been in there, but who knows how long ago. So lots of things to do. But yeah, if you guys got any more questions or suggestions on what we should do, let us know in the comments. I'll put some additional clips at the end of just driving, burnouts, some fun stuff. So yeah, comment down below and like the video. Let me know if you want to see more. So thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.